Okay, today we're going to take a look at a match from 1987 between two legends of squash, Chris Dittmar, who just returned serve there, he's a lefty, and Chris Robertson, who is basically the scrappy, really fit, attritional style of player. I would just want to talk about some of the differences, again, building on what I mentioned yesterday, that you see in technique and tactics from nowadays in squash. Dittmar was one of the best shot makers at this point in time. I'd say Rodney and Brett Martin were also up there. Chris Dittmar was, I think, 2 in the world for a lot of his career, just behind Jansher Khan. I think Chris Robertson maybe made it to 2 in the world, maybe 3, but he was right up there with the top guys. He's got a little bit of a late backswing and very big swing, as you'll see on some of these shots. And just, I think a big difference in the style of squash is you can see here already just how big a lot of these swings are. They're just really late backswing. They have to really take a bigger backswing and really rip the ball because they just can't generate enough pace in their forearm to have a shorter swing to snap the ball. I think that's definitely one of the biggest differences that I noticed right away. Besides just the short shorts and the obviously the poor video quality, but everything's evolved a lot in technology, and squash is no different. Dittmar, as you can see there, he was definitely one of the first known for actually having some deception, some disguise in his shot. Very fluid, smooth squash player. Definitely one technically you would want to copy your game after. And he won a lot of tournaments and lost to Jansher in even more tournaments. Chris Robertson, I remember I actually had one of his signature rackets, a red A. Henkel one when I was a kid. I remember getting that for Christmas and being so excited, even though it's probably 200 grams or maybe a bit more. The string quality wasn't as good back then. The grips were pretty terrible. The scoring was different, so they're playing to 9. You had to serve to get a rally. And the rallies were just generally a lot longer. Like even at the pro level, you don't see a lot of the minute-plus rallies now. I mean, you still do, but I think the tin is 2 inches lower now. The scoring's different. The players' shot-making ability is better. They can attack from all areas of the court. Their disguise on all their shots is better. So there's a lot of reasons why the rallies don't get as long as they used to. Even though you would think that, there's a lot of length at this point in time, they haven't just been trading straight drives. And I'm not sure if that's because it's a lefty versus a righty or just because the ball's bouncy and they're just hitting it hard, hitting it deep. It's the beginning of the match, first game. They have to wait a little bit till the ball cools down to maybe use the front of the court a lot. Saying that, and then, of course, you see two drops in a row. There's, definitely the game was a little bit more lengthy rallies, attritional rallies, but, Dittmar is one who was very confident there, taking the ball in short, there, nice disguise cross-court, Robertson just really, bigger swings, and he kind of moves the ball around, keeps it in play. I'd say he kind of places the ball around the court. That's the difference. Maybe Dittmar, he's a lot more precise in what he's doing with his shots, and he's definitely somebody that I think when you're growing up playing squash that you would want to mirror your game after. And I think just athletically, how these guys trained would have been a lot different. I think this is back when you would train the Jeff Hunt style, where you're doing 400-meter interval training. We're focused more on just the endurance part of squash and less so on the strength and explosiveness and the mobility part of squash. And I think that's a huge reason why players from this generation are probably having a lot of knee and hip problems. They're obviously putting a lot of pressure on their joints. They're probably not doing the right, they didn't know the right types of physio and rehab that they would have to do. And I think they're so dominant based on their right leg for Robertson and left leg for Dittmar. And nowadays, I think people are a lot more balanced of an athlete, and they can use either leg, even under pressure. And you'll see very few shots on their backhands being played off their back foot here. And I also noticed a couple of times you'll see a bit of a lunge like there, but they stay a lot more upright, and I think that has a lot to do with the equipment as well, because the racket's heavier. The more lower you get, the more in a lunge position, the less stable you are, and you're going to have trouble. You can't just like flick the ball down the wall with a 200-gram racket with bad strings and a crappy towel grip. Some of the shots you can play under pressure is way different. So I think that that really changed a lot when the technology improved, and I think this is before they even got to teardrop rackets. So you just had those small head-framed rackets that were all 200 grams. Maybe they got down to 180, 190, but they were quite heavy. And that's what I started with, and it definitely changed how you had to set up, how you executed your shot, I think that's really revolutionized the sport and made it a lot more explosive and fun to watch. So let's watch a few more rallies here and see if we pick up anything else. You'll already see like tons of cross courts, and they are actually moving the ball around a lot, but really big swings. I don't know, Robertson backhand something. It just doesn't look very clean to me. I haven't watched him a lot since I was a kid, but it'd be nice to know, he's short follow through, late racket prep. So amazing that he got that high in the world, one of the top 5 players. And really, he's just out there getting everything back, and it shows what you can do. If you're super fit, you don't make mistakes. You don't need to have the smoothest technique. Like, you're not going to win just based on how your swing looks. And I mean, that's still true today. You'll see a few people who don't have the best technique, but they're accurate, and they can attack and they can hit with power, technique's definitely not everything, but technique has evolved a lot because of what the technology has allowed and how athletic. You can see there, that was not obviously a great get, but just not able to stay balanced in that lunge, even in that one too, right? Couldn't recover from his lunge. So I think the type of training people do now is definitely more specific to squash and less endurance, cardio based. So I think that's interesting. And there was actually an attacking boast. Haven't seen that too often. He did clip the other side wall. So it didn't work, but that's what I really admired about Dittmar when I watched him as a kid. He was just, kind of, I think, very ahead of his time in how he tried to play squash. Even though I remember, great coach Stuart Dixon told me that he saw Dittmar was at his club and he was practicing for like an hour or two by himself, and all he did was hit drives. And he asked him, and he's like, "Oh, Chris, why are you hitting just straight drives for 2 hours straight?" And he's like, "Well, if I ever want to be Chancellor Khan, like, that's what it's going to take." And he's not doing that with Chris Robertson, because that's basically probably what Chris Robertson wants to do. And I feel like, just watching this half game so far, Chris Robertson's not applying any pressure when you leave him at the front of the court. So I'd feel very comfortable moving him around and putting the ball to the front or wherever, and just, you got to make him do more work than you. And, I guess if you can keep the ball off the tin, not make mistakes, you have a really good chance of winning that match. That's what I would see. That's what I see so far. And I'm sure Dittmar, had the winning edge against him, because he did have unbelievable shot-making ability. But if he was off and he was not maybe as prepared for a tournament, and he would make a few mistakes, and Robertson got confident, then I'm sure he had a number of wins off him over his career. So that's about it for today. I just wanted to take a quick look, because I talked about the evolution of squash and how technique and tactics have changed a lot. The training's changed a lot over the last even 5-10 years.